Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and this is Elite Dangerous. I wanted to come back and take a second look at beta 1.1 of the game, as it does introduce a number of fairly extensive changes to the game. One most notable that I didn't look at before is the changes to weapons. Now there's quite a few changes to weapons. The most obvious one initially, the one that most people were aware of, was the changes to missiles, which now do more or less zero damage to shields. The second change, and one that far less people are aware of, but that is starting to cause some controversy, is the amount of heat feedback that energy weapons now cause to your ship. They in fact cause so much heat build-up that they feed back into your ship's hull and cause quite a bit of damage, so a lot more management is now required. So looking at this, I've just fired 2 missiles at the Cobra and you can see it's done absolutely no damage, whilst my lasers there actually brought its shield down very fast, and the missiles, as you can see, are still very effective against the hull. 2 volleys have more or less annihilated it, and a few shots with the lasers will finish it off. So a single volley of missiles against the shield are useless, as you can see. So let's find another target and we'll fire a load more missiles at it. I didn't bring out dumbfire missiles here because, to be perfectly honest, my aim with them is more or less useless. So I'm using seeker missiles here, but I'm going to try and fire as many of them as I can at this oncoming Cobra. So that's 2. That's 4, 6, 8, and barely a scratch on his shield. Certainly he can recover from that by the time I reorientate myself and lock onto him again. That's 10, and we'll probably get in 12 as well. Let's go for another volley. Yeah, shield, as you can see then, missiles are now completely useless against shields, and this is not just because it's a Cobra. I've tried the same against haulers, and even they are more or less invulnerable to, even their shield, should I say, is more or less invulnerable to missile fire now. But lasers still work well. But now pay attention to my heat build up. It's now at 77% there, and that'll drop off very quickly once I stop shooting. I'll explain that in a second. So the way energy weapons now work is that they cause a feedback loop in terms of heat, and this is determined by the amount of energy you have available in your WEP slot or your WEP bar. Once that gets down to around about 1/3 or so, the amount of heat that the lasers generate increases exponentially, and this builds up very, very fast. As you can see, I'm now at 100%. I've just fired a chaff there, and I may be completely wrong on this part as I'm firing like crazy there, but I think they also generate a certain amount of heat usage as well. Now, as you can see, a chaff launcher now only has 10 chaff instead of 30, so that's also quite a difference. In a minute I'm going to start boosting and using a shield cell, and in fact I'll use a shield cell very shortly, as there's now a 5-second delay between when you press the shield cell button and when they activate. So I'll press that now, and there you can see it was 5 seconds until the shield cell took effect. So you've really got to factor in early on that. And now I've been boosting using the shield cells and firing chaff, and look at my heat now. It's now well up into the 136%, and I've taken a fair amount of hull damage. Note that that hull damage is not from the Anaconda I'm attacking. It is actually from my poor management of the heat usage on my ship's systems. So the way I should be managing this fight is firing my lasers until my WEP is about halfway empty, or 2/3 empty, and then stopping firing my lasers whilst it gives a chance to recharge, and then I can resume firing again. Now this may mean it takes longer to kill your target, but it also means that you've got to think about when to fire and when not to fire, and it does make the game a little bit more tactical in my opinion. Now if you've got a reasonably well equipped Python, anacondas are still quite easy to kill. As you can see, I made about 150k bounty there, but I've lost 11% on my hull. Let's go and see how much the repair bill is there and see if I break even. And as we're coming into landing, you can see the new docking pad UI icon there. A little bit of a rough landing. So how much was the repair bill? 290,000 credits. So I've made 140,000 credit loss on that. And that is basically down to my mismanagement of the new heat mechanic in patch 1.1. And it also is effectively me firing there in the way many people perhaps still do on the live servers, which is holding down your trigger, hoping that your weapons just keep hitting the target, and spamming out the shield cells and chaff. That is no longer effective at all by any means. So I'm here now firing 3 pulse lasers, and I've got 2 missile racks equipped, and I want to see how long it takes the ship to overheat. So all the time I'm just shooting and not flying. All the time I'm not using chaff or shield cells. The heat seems fairly reasonable, although it is slowly building up there to above 80% and might actually hit on 100 if I keep going. Looks like that might be the roof or the ceiling for that particular setup. Let's see what happens if I fire a chaff. Nothing. So chaff doesn't have any effect on heat build up there. Okay, let's try a different loadout. Now this is a slightly different layout. I've got 4 pulse lasers and 1 beam laser. Beam lasers generate huge amounts of heat, and I know some people actually like to fit as many beam lasers as they can, and up until now, so long as you had a decent power distributor and a power plant, it was something you could do. But now look at my temperature. Keep in mind this is just with a single beam laser. The ship is going to fry in a minute. It's now at over 200% heat. I'm wondering if I can get it up to 300. And look how fast my hull is now being damaged. And again, this is without taking any hits from enemy ships, and this is without boosting, although I am firing shield cells, as you can hear. You can use heat sinks to somewhat negate this, but even still, the speed at which the heat builds up would make this difficult. Now, the developers of Frontier have actually said that this is by no means the final version of what we can expect to see on live. This is just the way things stand at the moment. Players have been asked to test this and provide feedback. Frontier say they will then tweak the game accordingly before it comes to live, so hopefully it won't be quite as bad as it is now, although I must say I do quite like this mechanic, this new mechanic, as it does make combat a lot more interesting, and it prevents all the shield cell spamming and chaff spamming that is currently plaguing the game. So this is just 5 pulse lasers, and you can see that's also causing a problem if they're constantly fired. And of course, do remember that's when just simply firing the weapons and not managing the heat at all. Let's have a change and look at something a little bit more peaceful. I've flown out to Earth. I want to have a look at the night lights here and see what these cities look like from space. And just on approach there, you could see the new atmospheric effects there that the sun casts there with the atmospheric scattering. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of population down here on Earth, does there? It seems fairly sparse. Now, I'm not entirely sure what side of the planet this currently is. I would take a guess and say maybe Europe, but I'll probably make an arse of myself there. According to the lore of the game, Earth isn't as populated as it once was, as really only the rich live there, and all the lower class and all the poor and all the paupers were moved off just to make room for a luxurious paradise. Let's get rid of those orbit lines and then I'll switch the HUD off. Yeah, there we go, look at the lovely sunrise there. There was a form of atmospheric scattering before, and that's actually been in the game a long time now, but it didn't have quite so much of that red glow as it now does. How about we have a look at Mars? And straight away you can see the improvements of the new shaders on the planets here. The terrestrial planets look much better than they did before. I do like the clouds. Now Mars for some reason looks a little bit more dense in terms of population, although I guess that could be because it is the capital of the Federation. If I'm remembering my lore correctly, that is. A lot of coastal populated areas then, and not so much inland. But it certainly makes a nice change to the feeling of these planets. Rather than looking at a pure black orb, it now actually looks like a planet and that some people live down there. So a nice change. And there, a lot more population inland, as we can see, moving over to the other side of the planet. Some of the other changes that have been made, which I was unable to show in my previous video, are the changes to universal cartographics. Right, as you can see over on the right hand side of the UI, it now gives you details on a per planet basis of each planet that you've scanned. These ones are simply with the basic or the advanced discovery scanner. There's no detailed scan going on there, and here you can see where I have done a detailed scan. It actually tells me so. So this is good because it gives me a breakdown of the information from each system and how much each particular item in that system was worth. Even in the cases where I've done only a single detailed surface scan on some planets and a basic scan on the rest. So what happens when I sell that data? Well, let's look for a suitable one to sell. I don't want to sell one with a detailed scan on it just yet. We'll have a look at that in a second. So we'll go for this one, I think. Yeah, we'll do that. And okay, nothing happens there. We just get the credits for it. Let's see what happens with this one then. And we get a new pop-up box. I'm the first to discover that system. And we get a little bonus as well for being the first. I think the bonus is a 50% extra. So let's take a note of that system and then go have a look on the galaxy map and see what it says about my discovery. Hopefully there should be a tag on the galaxy map as well as the system map. Alright, it was HIP 25127. And that's way over here. Nothing there, but let's have a look on the info panel. Nothing. Okay, I was hoping to see a discovered by there, but obviously not. And let's have a look on the system map. It says first discovered by Obsidian Ant, and it's also got a little tag over the star itself, which I assume would also be over a planet if there were some planets here. So a nice little change. And one that should make exploration a little bit more rewarding for some people. Let's get back to universal cartographics and have a look at some of the other changes here. So there's a sell by page option, which allows me to sell everything on this page in one go. And if there's any discoveries there, it lists them all in one go. So it's 3 extra first to discovers. Possibly I need to test what happens there if there's 20 first to discovers. It didn't look like there was room for that there. And this system I can't sell because I'm just slightly short of the 20 light years I need to be over. But all in all, between this video and the previous video, it pretty much nicely wraps up all the changes that have been made in patch 1.1 so far. I just want to see if there's any way of filtering or sorting by systems you've discovered, but it seems there's nothing like that in the game just yet. Will be nice when it is in there. Nope, nothing to search by discovered systems. A little bit of a shame, but not to worry. So that's patch 1.1, with patch 1.2 out in just over another month. So it seems Frontier are getting back in the swing of doing updates like they were back during beta, which is not a bad thing by any means, and hopefully should keep a few people happy. Now there is one other thing I want to show you before I jump off here, and that is the decals, which are now fully working, whereas before we only had the single skull decal. We've now got other decals available to us. And let's get over there and have a look. So we've got the skull, as well as a founder decal, and an explorer decal. So the explorer decal, I would imagine, should update as I increase in rank, and hopefully there's one for combat and trade as well. The founder's decal here was available to Kickstarter backers. So that pretty much wraps up this video, I think. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time. This has been Obsidian Ant, signing off.